Good evening, Jeopardy fans, and we are live here on hashtag Jeopardy Live Panel, presented by thejeopardyfan.com. Once again, and as always, I am Andy Saunders, and I will be moderating tonight's discussion. If you've got, I've got a pair of competitors from this currently airing teachers tournament, so we'll get right into the introductions. First up on your screen right now, I have Lee DiGeorge. Thanks for joining us on hashtag Jeopardy Live Panel, Lee.
Hi everybody, how are you today?
And also on hashtag Jeopardy Live Panel, joining me, Ranjani Sheshadri. Thanks for joining me, Ranjani.
You nailed that. Hey.
Well, I will say my I listened to Johnny Gilbert a few times before I go on with the panel, so that's kind of how I that's my secret, as it were, because I figure Johnny Gilbert is usually really good with the pronunciations, and then
yeah.
So, my first question for tonight's panel, it's the one that I usually open with a hashtag Jeopardy Live Panel with. And by the way, if you've got any comments, there's a YouTube live chat. There's a hashtag on Twitter, hashtag Jeopardy Live Panel. You can leave your questions for our panel on either of those spots. But my first question for my panel this evening, it's the one I like to lead off with. Most Jeopardy contestants start out somehow as Jeopardy fans, and so most Jeopardy fans have an origin story as to how they became Jeopardy fans. So, Lee and Ranjani, how did you both become Jeopardy fans in the first place?
So you want to start?
You can go ahead, Ranjani.
Okay, great. I don't know. I just used to always watch the show growing up, but I was like a huge trivia nerd, a geography nerd especially. So I like to be able to quiz myself against it. And I liked, I guess, feeling smarter than other people because I was kind of a brat as a kid. So I don't know. It's kind of fun to like be able to stump the grown-ups, be like, "Ooh, I've read this weird book." So I don't know. It just came out of a sense of like self-righteousness, I guess. But it evolved into just kind of just a fun show to watch. Like, it was a show I always found enjoyable.
Nice, very nice. And you, Lee?
My Jeopardy origin story is more of a game show origin story. When I was like 3 or 4 years old, I would run to the top of the stairs, and no matter what the game show was, no matter which game show was on, as long as it was there was an announcer announcing the people who were the contestants, I would run down the stairs and run and sit in front of the TV as the people were being announced. So that was no different with Jeopardy. At 4 years old, whenever they called the person who was the returning champion, I would bound down the stairs. So I would be the first person to be sitting in the champion seat as the cute little boy at 4 years old, ready to answer trivia questions.
Now, at 4 years old, how good were you at answering those trivia questions?
My current 5-year-old would be better than I would have been at that time. So
what you're saying is that when Alex Trebek is either hosting at the age of 90 or has retired, that there may very well be another Jeopardy champion or another Jeopardy contestant, I should say, in our midst,
and probably a Jeopardy champion too, with the route she's going.
I hope so. That's gonna be our redemption, man.
So, the two of you certainly had differing experiences when it came to the green room, in that, Lee, you were kind of first out there, and Ranjani, you got to stick around all day. So can you speak to the respective experiences of playing on Monday and playing on Friday, as it were?
Well, I can definitely talk about playing on Monday.
Yeah.
I had an advantage. I've been on game shows before. The other two contestants hadn't. So I was really loose. And one thing that people were telling me in the green room, and Ranjani knows this also, when everyone was like there at the beginning of the day and everyone was kind of tense, I was busting around. I was just making friends with everyone.
You were, yeah. I was all like, I don't know if I know enough.
And I was just like, yeah, let's go. So I was hoping to be called first. I wanted to be the first game out. I didn't want to sit there. I didn't want to wait.
Mm-hmm.
I had felt really good on the buzzer during practice. I was answering questions pretty clearly. I felt like whenever I was in a buzzer race during practice, I was beating everyone, including a gentleman by the name of Larry. I was demolishing him on the buzzer in practice. And yeah, so I was very excited to be going out there first. I felt it was a marked advantage for me to be going out there first.
And of course, in the Jeopardy round on Monday, you certainly held your own against both Larry and Claire. It was a very even game at the 30 question mark. Double Jeopardy was a decidedly different story. It I know I asked you when the last time was, because it had been so long that a contestant had actually failed to ring in first in an entire round, and it sounds like it had been a while.
Yeah. I'll talk about that. I saw those categories come up, and for those of you who know me, and a lot of people in the trivia world do know me. I mean, I'm pretty much out there. My strengths are pretty well documented. They're musical strengths. There are a lot of pop culture.
That Radiohead poster in the background.
What's that?
The Radiohead poster in the background.
Oh, that's an album cover. Yeah. I mean, music is key for me. There was no music. Food is key for me. There was no food. It was really hardcore academia, and I completely got in my head. And I was looking at the board, being that there's 30 clues, and I looked at the colleges of Oxford. I'm like, well, that's -5. Now I'm playing a 25 clue game. And then I looked at empires, and I know Larry's a LearnedLeague player who has a 95% world history rate. So I know that I'm now 5 more clues down. So at this point in time, I'm looking at a board that has 30 clues, and I have 20 to buzz in on. And I am panicked. And I shouldn't be. I should be confident.
Mm-hmm.
So I grip that buzzer just a little bit tighter, and I start buzzing around a quarter to a half a second early each and every time. And as they say, the idea of being crazy and the idea of, being completely ridiculous is repeating the same action over and over again and expecting a different response. I was repeating the same action over and over and over again and not getting any different response. And I was sitting there, and as you can see on TV, the frustrated Lee face was there because I knew 3/4 of the round. Pretty straightforward. I knew answers that I was not getting in on.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating to me because if I was playing at home with just a regular Coriat, my Coriat score for the game would have been a very good Coriat. And now I look at that game and I look at me struggling to buzz in and not getting in, and just incredibly frustrating. The two of them, kudos to the both of them, both Claire and Larry, they remained poised up there, and I got in my own head.
That's kind of how the first part of my round started. That I was just like, oh, can I curse on this?
If you'd like.
Okay. I was like, oh crap, I'm on stage. There's a dude I know from the TV. He's staring at me. He said my name. Oh my god, what do I do? And you're right with the buzzer. Like, if you're just a fraction too early, and like when I played trivia, like in high school, like I was on a trivia team, getting in early was fine. Like, you don't get locked out. There's none of that. And so getting in early is kind of an advantage. So I was like, that's the one thing I didn't practice going in. I was like, I got this. I got a buzzer. I got this. Beat everybody at this. Turns out beating everybody at that is not always the strategy you want to go for. So I definitely feel that frustration of just being like, oh, shoot.
So
I'm keeping it.
Yeah. But I mean, obviously you were able to rebound from that. So how much did that opening break help you?
The first commercial break?
Yes.
Oh god. One of the producers came up and he kind of coached me through, like, here's what you say when the question ends, like, do da 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 da. So I got this rhythm in my head. And I think once I started getting a few, I got a little more confidence back. I think when I was down in the hole, I was just like, I even joked to my students. I was like, watch me be the person who gets like negative 12,000 on TV, and it's your teacher. Hello, hi, Betty. So I think just seeing my number go back in the positive and saying, okay, you can do this. This is not impossible. You can buzz in. Just figure out the rhythm. I think it really helped.
Yeah, and I think it seemed like you were definitely a little bit nervous to start. I think there were a couple of times where you may have even forgotten your phrasing.
Yeah. And it's a good thing because I remember like in single Jeopardy, they're like, he'll allow it, but once you get to double, like there's no mercy. And I was like, oh, yeah. And I would forget, I would buzz in just for the sake of having buzzed in and getting called on, and then not have anything to say. Because I was just so ready to be on that buzzer. So there's a point in the show where like I was supposed to come up with a word, like it was supposed to be vilify is what we were supposed to say. And I was like, oh, shoot. And you can see me make that face like, oh shoot, I was supposed to have an answer ready. I don't know, to make up a word that starts with V.
Yeah.
So yeah, you psych yourself out a little bit.
So, Ranjani, I think you can obviously speak to this a little bit more than Lee can. I know that the show usually shows movies for those who are in sequester, so obviously you did not get to see any of the games before yours, and we'll get to that a little bit later on. But what movies did they show this year?
What fractions of movies do you mean?
Sure, we'll go with that.
So the DVD player broke about a couple minutes in. I estimate because we watched about the first 20 minutes of 16 Candles, I think. And then it skipped. So we watched then another 20 minutes somewhere in the middle of 16 Candles. And then at some point it stopped working for 16 Candles. So we pop in Edward Scissorhands. Again, we get the first like 20 minutes of that, then it skips again. And then we eventually had someone connect something up. So I watched, it was kind of maddening. You can't tell time in there, first of all. Like you can't have your phones. There's no clock that I can see. There's a point where like we were supposed to have lunch and it's supposed to be noon. And then I finished eating my pizza and I thought it was like 15 minutes. It's like 2 o'clock. And I'm like, oh my God. So you're in this weird like time warp and you're only seeing clips of like cold 80s and 90s movies. And it's kind of like, I don't know, it's a very hipster kind of hell. I don't know. Like what it feels like. It's this very particular, like disorienting, I don't know, kind of feeling where you don't know exactly where you are or when you are, but you're like, at some point they're going to call me up and I got to do the thing with my hands and like buzz in on things. I don't know what I'm doing.
Now, obviously, Ranjani, you didn't see any of the previous games, so clearly you would have had no idea that you were in a particularly good position when it came to your the possibility of a wild card.
Yeah.
Now, what did either of you have a kind of cutoff number in mind going into the tournament?
Positive. It's a positive number, higher than 0. So I want.
Well, I did. My goal was to end, no matter where I was at that juncture, with around between 12 and 14,000. If I had more than $16,000 going into Final Jeopardy, I was wagering 0. 16,000 would be an absolute lock to me to make it into the wild card. So I would have kept it at 16 no matter what. If I had more than 16,000, I wouldn't have wagered anything. If I was anywhere between 10,000 to 14,000, I would try to wager to 14,000. If I was at 14, I would have tried to wager to 16. If I was at 10,000 and I was the first game, I probably would have made a wager. I don't know if I would have made it around a 4,000 wager, but it probably would have been at least 2,000. I was hoping to be at 16. And when I finished my game at 52, I knew that I absolutely needed, was it 52 or 54? It doesn't matter. I knew I absolutely needed to wager all of it to get up to 10,000 plus as a possibility of being a wild card. Turns out I didn't need to wager that much, but there's no way you know that in a day.
Exactly. Yeah. So I made the mistake of reading like a couple comments like on my match and they're like, she wagered too high. She went too high. And I was like, I have no way of knowing that. First of all, like since I'm the very last match and all these people are like super talented and super smart, I was like, give them the benefit of the doubt. What if they all have like, I don't know. And part of this is also, I didn't know a lot of the strategy going in. I have watched a lot of Jeopardy, but I haven't watched it to that point where I'm thinking about the numbers so much. Um, so, I mean, I didn't know that was a high wager. I thought it was pretty reasonable, especially like given the category that I saw. Because I was like, if you know anything about me, I'm all about history. I love history. I get into political arguments with people all the time and have to routinely hash out like, okay, this is what Democrat means, this is what Republican means, these are Whigs, whatever. Like I have to do that. I have to teach some U.S. history is like tutorials sometimes for my kids, and it's part of what we do in AP Lang. So when I saw the category, I was like, let's do this. Let's go. We got this. Clearly, I did not got this, but
Well, I also,
yes.
I'm a very, very strong geography player. That's something that I know a lot of, and something
Yeah.
I live and I study and I love it. So when U.S. cities comes up,
Yeah.
the one voice I hear in the audience at that point in time is my brother, because my brother's super excited. He plays trivia with me every Friday. He's like, U.S. cities, yeah. He was stoked for me.
You could hear him, or is it in your head?
I can pick. Listen, I'm from New York City, so
Yeah.
are my parents, and so are my family, and we happen to be a rather loud family. So those type of things definitely happen. My father had a couple of choice words also during filming, which I didn't hear, but other people around me heard, and that was very funny as well.
So obviously, now I would say, for whatever reason, the quarterfinal Final Jeopardy this week seemed to be a little bit on the more difficult side as a whole.
Uh-huh.
Did you have any like thought as to, maybe they're going to, like, what if Final Jeopardy is a little bit more difficult?
I know that I've done tons of Final Jeopardies, tons of them. And I know I have a spreadsheet of my percentage. And
Wow.
I mean, I went into this expecting, I'm going to say this right now. I went into Jeopardy and the teacher tournaments expecting to win. There was not a doubt in my mind that I was going there and I was going to win this entire tournament. And I had prepared, I had studied. I was at a 82% get rate on Final Jeopardy. I knew where I was. I knew where I wanted to be. I knew I had really shored up a lot of the problem categories for me, which were literature and American history. I had decided that I wasn't going to spend a whole lot of time on world history because I can't know everything. And I had to make some concessions there. But I was ready to go. So when my double Jeopardy happened, and as Andy tweeted, 33 consecutive clues of not getting in first, I was at a point at the first commercial break, I was pretty sure I was advancing in the next round. Even at going into double Jeopardy, even though I was in third and I was a cuckoo clock away from being in first at that point in time.
Oh, it's gonna haunt us forever, huh?
Oh, if I would have just said clock and not cuckoo clock, I'm at 6,400. Going into double Jeopardy at 6,400 without tripping the daily double. It was exactly pretty much where I wanted to be. I was very confident. I knew that if it was a nice category for me, if it was a friendly category for me, I had a very good chance of getting it. And I had the opportunity of seeing every single Final Jeopardy in the audience because I was there for the first game, and then I saw the second game, third game, so forth. I would have missed one other Final Jeopardy question that week, and that would have been William Tell. I did not have William Tell, but
I
then
would
again,
have gotten that one, but I couldn't have gotten half the other ones.
I was definitely not going to get the opera. I would have gotten Pocket Veto. Sorry, Ranjani.
No, the thing is, I had it on the tip of my tongue, and I just couldn't figure out how to put it down. And you could see, like, I started scribbling things, like, at the very last 5 seconds. Like, I gotta write something down. I can't process, but yeah.
And what was funny about my game is that if you look at the face of myself and you look at the face of Larry and you look at the face of Claire, not a single one of us start writing when that U.S. cities clue comes up. Not a single one of us budges. We're all staring blankly at the screen.
Yep.
Because it is a question that we did not expect. I mean, it was complete red alert mode. And I go through in my mind, I'm like, well, It's not Philadelphia. Philadelphia is not a person.
Couldn't
So
be.
you then panic and you spend the first 5 seconds telling yourself that it's not Philadelphia. You spend the next 10 seconds basically running around in a circle chasing your tail.
Because while the music is playing in your head, right? So
you're trying to figure out something at that juncture. And then you're like, okay, Lee, name a movie that's named after a city, that's named after a person, and bonus points if it won an Academy Award, which is why I said San Francisco.
Oh, if I had linked those, I could have maybe gotten Philadelphia.
Well,
I wrote part of a paper on AIDS and the AIDS epidemic and Tommy. Yeah.
Yeah, but Philadelphia wasn't the right answer. I mean, it was Fargo.
Fargo.
And we sit there, and I didn't even. And I'm going to show my ignorance here. I didn't even know Fargo was a person.
You're
didn't
right.
know Fargo was a person.
I wouldn't have made that connection.
I thought Fargo was a play on words
on
how far Wells would go.
That's how little we know about North Dakota. It's just.
I live in New York City.
You
Hello, anyone from North
after
Dakota. I love you, but
you betcha.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that Monday's Final Jeopardy was easily the toughest one of the week, as I mean, I personally play everyone off Clue of the Day, and I usually get a pretty good. I don't explicitly track my percentage, but I'm up there, and for me to come up with not only did I whiff completely within the 30 seconds, the best I discounted Chicago because I thought it had won too many Oscars. The best I could get to was Selma.
Ah, okay.
I said I ended up at Selma, and then eventually it took me another 5 minutes following. Basically, I went to the Google machine and said, okay, tell me which movies have won multiple Academy Awards. And eventually, after looking at a very long list of movies, got to Fargo. I mean, it was certainly... Interestingly enough, Matt Carberry has just posted something on our live chat. For him, he was very fortunate that Philadelphia gave him an in the name, in the fact that its arena is called the Wells Fargo Center.
Oh, damn it. 30 seconds that didn't even...
I know. It's like your brain doesn't go there.
Yeah, that connection was never made. I mean, I've been in the Wells Fargo. I've seen shows in the Wells. I've seen events at Wells Fargo. Yeah. But the real funny thing, which I wound up posting on Twitter, was directly afterwards.
Oh yeah.
My brother called me. He's like, I'm gonna pick you up. We're gonna go get tacos. So it was cool. We were gonna go get some tacos. He's like, don't get on the bus to go back to the hotel. Walk, and then I'll pick you up. Tell me the first landmark you see. I look across the street, and across the street is a Wells Fargo. And I'm like, well, here I am by the Wells Fargo. He's like, you're freaking kidding me. I'm like, no, I'm right outside the Wells Fargo.
So did either of you have a watch party for your appearance?
Yeah, we had a bunch of my students come into the cafeteria. We set up like a projector screen. My English department came out. It was pretty cool. There were parts where I was just like feeling judged a little bit, and I was like, guys, it's harder than you think. But it was really cool. It was just people out to support me and kind of tell me I'm getting into my own head a little too much, which is always helpful. So that was kind of nice to get snacks too.
Nice.
I had the opportunity of watching with my 2 daughters who were very excited to watch me on TV.
Oh yeah.
So that was my little watch party, and seeing my little Bryn jumping up and down when I got the first couple right, and then when the question about Lincoln's came up, she knew that the president was Lincoln. So she's like, Lincoln, Daddy, buzz in, it's Lincoln, and I didn't buzz in because I was beating on the buzzer at that point. And then she looked at me and sad eyes. She's like, why didn't you buzz in for Lincoln, Dad?
I know. Like they get on your case. They're like, well, you should have known that. You should have buzzed in. I was like, I was trying.
I was also very fortunate that the entire world knew when I was trying to buzz in because I was holding my buzzer real high.
I was
I
like,
didn't realize how high I was holding my buzzer, but I was holding my buzzer real high. Like everyone's like, "Oh well, Lee knew that one. Oh
you're
well,
like,
Lee knew that one." It doesn't matter. I'm not getting in on any of them,
I
but
know,
I knew that one.
but at least they could see that I was trying. I was definitely like gunning for it.
Well, I mean, don't they say to kind of hold your, if you can, hold your buzzer, hold your signaling device above the lectern? Because, especially in a case like Lee's, where, he doesn't get in first at all, they can, if you're holding your signaling device above the lectern and are, physically trying to signal and there's no signal going through, they know there's a problem.
Well, here's a couple of things. Number one, they did not give us any sort of information of where we needed to hold our buzzer. We were told to hold it wherever it was comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
There were some people who held it behind their backs. I mean, so
I'm not even coordinated enough to do like.
I mean,
yeah,
there was one person who held it behind their back, and it was really interesting.
That's impressive.
But we were, at the end of each commercial break, every time there was a break, the first thing they did was they reset the lights and they made everyone hit their buzzer, so to make sure that your lights would go on.
Mm-hmm.
So they knew right away, and we knew right away that our buzzer was working appropriately. And
it was just us.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's fair. Now, how much, as teachers, and obviously your students would get the opportunity to know that you're going on Jeopardy, to be on the teachers tournament. How much do your students help with preparation for this tournament? Or did they?
I may have given out extra credit for like sports trivia. I had kids like talk me through like football and basketball a little bit. And just like I would ask them to quiz me, they'd quiz me and be fine. Pro bono, that one.
Mm-hmm.
I had students who, well, this was my Jeopardy story, actually. I had students who were very cool, and they're like, "Oh, you have a Jeopardy audition. Here's the PowerPoint presentation of all the art you need to know." So there was like a 200 slide PowerPoint presentation of all of the art, and all of the different art periods. And I looked through it for a long time. I have it printed out in a binder, actually, that the kids did for me. And it was very nice of them. I told them that if I won Jeopardy, I would have to take them to a museum. They're graduated. They're in high school now. And I didn't win, but I'm still going to offer to take them to the museum with their families.
So how was it when Alex I think he referred to PowerPoint as power?
As a power presentation, right.
Did you ever consider, not trying to correct him and not, just trying to roll with it and, not call it PowerPoint later?
Let the man be.
He's Alex Trebek. You don't mess with the Don,
Mm-hmm. So it seems like the teachers always seem to have a good amount of camaraderie with each other. Because being a teacher in common certainly helps with that. How can either of you speak to the camaraderie that your tournament cohort has?
Yeah, I mean, we were all cheering for each other in the audience. We kind of commiserated over stuff in the green room. We talked about some teachers had difficulties kind of getting to the tournament because of like snafus with administration or absences or whatever. So we kind of talked about that, and we, shared those stories. So
okay,
Claire and I bonded over Latin. Like there were other things. So we all found something common to kind of share with each other, which I think was kind of cool. And we're all still like in contact today. So
nice.
We've had we have a really good group, and I know that all of the teachers tournament people will speak to this, but we have a really good group. There isn't a single bad person in that group. Everyone was so friendly. Everyone was so nice. There wasn't a single person there that felt like they were better than anyone else. It was always a really welcoming group, and everyone was just so nice to each other. We've continued to keep in touch. we make fun of apples quite a bit in
I
our
was
little.
working at HEB today, and I just walk into the Apple aisle as you were like posting that thing, and I was like, never gonna let this go.
We had to for those of you who haven't seen it yet, we all had to do a whole bunch of apple spots for different
The cheesiest,
the cheesiest apple spots where we had to basically hold up
chippiest.
all of these apples and talk about so many apples. And my father messaged me today. He's like, "So Lee, you were juggling apples?" I'm like, "Oh no, did one of the spots air?" He's like,
Yep.
"Yup." And that was that.
Now, I'm just curious because there are sometimes they save some of the spots for when they air the tournament over the summer.
Oh God, they're gonna re-air it. No.
Yeah, they usually re-air the tournament in usually around Labor Day, so that should be that should be a fun
boy.
surprise. I'm almost curious to see what things that they'll show us as content in September.
It'll be a lot of fun.
Knowing Houston will probably be rained in again because hurricane season. So
I mean, I was triggered just recently when Jeopardy for their semifinals just posted some content about Buzzer 101, and of course they show my hand right there, you know, ready to buzz in, and obviously I'm behind everyone else. But so the second that how the buzzer is everything thing, I felt like Jeopardy was trolling me quite a bit.
Amy Williamson is on the live chat saying it's like they take the hometown howdies and make it even more awkward just for you.
yeah.
That's pretty accurate.
Yeah. So, I think the both of you will have slightly different answers to this question. Obviously, Ranjani being sequestered, I think you mentioned you had pizza for lunch?
Yes, I did have pizza for lunch.
So, Lee, you obviously got the opportunity to have lunch at the commissary.
I did.
So, what did you have on Sony's dime? I feel like you already knew that you weren't going to be advancing, that the miracle of a whole bunch of zeros and negatives was not going to happen.
Correct.
So, what did you have on Sony's dime at the commissary?
I'm going to completely make everyone sad. I had a salad and a soup. I had a salad.
Yeah.
I got to make my own salad. It was delicious. It was full of chickpeas and edamame and all sorts of good stuff.
Protein it up.
Oh yeah,
Take care of yourself.
I had this really nice salad, and there was a corn chowder that I had along with it. It was pretty tasty.
Now, Amy's also said, don't sell yourself short on the buzzer thing because you had a baller manicure.
I did. That I did.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely got.
Maybe that's why they picked you. They're like, those nails are good.
Yeah, good nails. Good nails. Yeah, you have to take care of that.
You're the hand model.
So, were there any stoppages in play during the quarterfinals? Like, did they have to stop tape to confer on anything or anything like that? Anything that seemed unusual?
I can answer this because Ranjani can't. There were 2 stoppages, one for me and one for Ranjani. My cuckoo clock was double checked, and Ranjani's vituperate was also double checked.
I had no idea. I was staring straight ahead, and I was just like,
yeah. So
I didn't know what's going on around me.
Both of those situations happened really close to the breaks anyway.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So there was no stoppage per se, but they were a little bit slower going back to taping both times because they had to make sure of both answers that we both got negged for, and they kept the negs for both.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, my next question is a little bit... it's something I've never asked here on #Jeopardy Live panel, but I thought about it because unfortunately Indy was not able to join us because he's at a Dungeons and Dragons.
He's living his best life. It's fine.
So I'm kind of curious to know, especially if you're watching live or if you're even watching later or even listening later when this hits iTunes. Um, if you could add something Jeopardy related to a Dungeons and Dragons campaign,
Ooh.
what would you add?
Alex Trebek, main boss.
That was a really quick answer.
That gave
I was like, what's gonna
zero
be the most
chance to really
fearsome thing? It's
consider
like,
it.
oh, you have to ask some trivia questions. Like that's already part of D&D sometimes. Like, what would actually terrify me? Or if you have to like defuse a bomb or something, or open a chest or whatever, and you have to do this puzzle, but it has to be within the Jeopardy Final Jeopardy theme music.
Ooh.
Any of that could be kind of horrifying for me. If you so my friend who's running a D&D thing, or is supposed to, I'm gonna expose him on here so you can actually get on with it. He has like climate control thing set up that he has like lights and he has like it's gonna feel like winter. And I'm like, if you keep it as cold as the green room, like if you can just like lower it to that level, like we'll be good. That was freaking frigid going in and out. So any of those.
Now, I need to turn in my geek cred. I have never played D&D in my entire life.
Give it up. Let me shred it.
That's it. It's gone. I have played role-playing games though, so I'm going to kind of answer from that regard. By the way, if anyone doesn't want to be my friend anymore because I haven't played D&D, I'm sorry.
I'm signing off.
But the idea of the daily double, I think, should be worked into role-playing games in general. How one person of the party is forced to either answer a question or complete a side quest in order to either win or lose some sort of treasure going on in the game, where where one person would open up a chest or something to that extent, and whoever the character was that opened up the chest would be forced to make some sort of wager in regards to what happens next.
I'm good with that. That's high stakes. That's also like break your friendship kind of level of D&D, which is kind of what I like.
Mm-hmm. Now, Sheldon Lewis from the most recent college championship has said, don't feel bad. He's never played a full game either, though he's gone through many failed attempts.
Of D&D or Jeopardy?
Of D&D.
Every time I start a game or like a campaign with somebody, like we roll characters. We spend like 6 hours doing that because everyone's like, no, I want to beat this multi-class or whatever. And it's just a whole mess. Usually my brothers, so I'm calling them out here too. And then we never touch the characters again. We play for one day and we never touch them again. Then the next time we meet, we re-roll new characters like 2 years later. So yeah, I don't think I've played a full campaign through with my characters ever.
Well, wow. Amy has a suggestion here. She's creating a cantrip called the Daily Double, in which every enemy must speak in the form of a question for a given amount of time, or else lose 1d4 health per offense.
Shoot, that's on the DM then. That's hard.
That's a foreign language to me, but it sounds good. Good job, Amy.
DM cantrip is a spell. It's a daily spell. You get a couple of them.
That's let's see here. Okay, for a couple of comments from Shay Zellweger. First up, he heard a rumor there was another stoppage where an audience member said a swear.
That was rumor around too, right?
Well, see, there were two swears, but the main swear came in Ranjani's game. There was also part of my game. There was at least one category that needed, when the categories were being read, that needed to be read twice because my lovely father said an expletive when the Colleges of Oxford category was read.
He said maudlin.
At least I knew that one.
And the other?
The other was a gentleman who, and Ranjani was there, and she was up on stage. She didn't realize what was going on.
I had no idea this happened. People had to tell me later, and I'm so mad I missed it.
There was this guy who was complaining about a Jeopardy category, or a Jeopardy clue that was given previously, and it was about Zeppelins versus blimps and how certain things are Zeppelins, certain things are
It's not
blimps.
technically a Zeppelin, but it's actually a blimp, and
Yeah, and
I build blimps for a living, and
this guy was
oh no.
ripping on Alex for like 5 minutes, and then Alex Trebek looked at one of the little kids, said, "Cover your ears," and pointed to the man and said things I'm not going to say on Jeopardy Live right now.
He accused him of fomenting some sort of fecal rebellion.
Yes.
Is that
works.
that?
And everyone laughed, and the guy kind of sheepishly grinned, and that was the end of that. So there was a couple of momentary cuss words being uttered.
That's every freaking word.
Some more comments. Also, it would be hard to incorporate Jeopardy stuff into D&D, but he's had a past DM utilize the prisoner's dilemma. And also, side quests definitely exist and can come with wagers. In that, in his last side quest, he had to pick who he was going to assassinate based on the gold value.
Oh, shoot. It's a little close to home. Yeah, any of those would work. I think that'd be kind of fun.
Okay. So, at this point, I'm curious to know, do you have any questions for each other? Anything that you think that thought that I was going to bring up tonight but didn't? Or any questions you may have for me?
Well, Ranjani and I have become fast friends throughout this process. Fist bump. Okay. And part of the reason is that the two of us both felt like this tournament ended a little too quickly for us.
Mm-hmm.
We both have significant knowledge that whether it was due to buzzer or due to wager or whatever the case might have been, we didn't make it past that point. And one of the things that we had spoken about privately was that we felt that either of us, if the categories would have shook out differently or the matchups would have been different, possibility that the two of us could have been sitting there in that final match as well. Mm-hmm. So it became a moment where we became fast friends. And the one shout out that we have, and that at least I have, and I know that Ranjani feels the same way, is that the community of Jeopardy contestants and the community of everyone, they all look out for each other. And they're all just such wonderful, wonderful people.
And I've just met them for the first time, and I'm like, wow, no one here is negative. Everyone here understands. Like, everyone here is either like someone who missed out on winning or advancing, or is someone who has won and still has a humility about them. So I think that's kind of cool because you're in a weird privileged club where everyone around you is like super smart and super talented and maybe even super lucky, but they all kind of understand where you're coming from because they've all been at some point in some match in your shoes. So I think that's kind of refreshing. I was kind of worried. I was like, wow, I'm going to be in a chat room with a bunch of champions. They're going to be like, oh, yeah, when I won the fourth time, it was like this. It was great. And I was like, so it's totally like, it's cool. And shout out to the special Women of Jeopardy group because we have a special place for other things. It's private, but I can't say more than that, but it's cool. I'll say that.
No, Lee, I just remembered that something else happened in your life this weekend. So I guess this is a good time to talk about getting to talk to Peter Sagal.
That was fun. So I was actually asked to be on Wait, Don't Tell Me 3 weeks previously. And I said, sure. And then I remembered, oh, my Jeopardy episode hasn't aired yet. Let me contact Jeopardy before I agree to do anything. So I contacted Jeopardy, and Jeopardy said, you can't do this until your episode airs. We're sorry. So I contacted Wait, and I'm like, I'm sorry, but I can't do this right now. And they're like, so when does your Jeopardy episode air? And I already knew that I was unfortunately a one-time only contestant. So I said, my Jeopardy episode airs on Monday. And if I do well enough, but I obviously knew I didn't, I would have to continue. But I should be good to film on this day or tape on this day. And they called me that week and they're like, we saw your episode on Jeopardy. Your buzzer speed is too slow, but you're good enough for us on Wait, Don't Tell Me.
That's awesome.
And I'm like, oh, that's funny. And they talked about Peter Sagal and his Jeopardy experience, because there was a Jeopardy experience that he had as well. And it was a lot of fun. And I'm a big NPR person. If you aren't and you aren't supporting your NPR station, you really should.
$5 a month.
Yeah, I'm a supporter. And
one venti Starbucks.
I'm pretty good at current events just in general. I keep up with it. And most of my current events knowledge comes from Wait, Don't Tell Me. Because I can't read the news. It's really, really sad, really hard to deal with. So I need it with a spoonful of sugar. And I get that with Wait with a whole bunch of humor. So and by the way, I'm from New York City, so if you don't love my accent by now, I'm sorry. But I had the opportunity to play Whose Bill Is It this Whose Bill this time, and they gave me some quotes of the news, and I had to figure out who they were talking about, whether they were talking about Michael Cohen or Melania, or the volcano erupting in Hawaii.
How do you tell them apart?
Oh, you really can't. But it was a fantastic experience. Mm-hmm. Lots of fun. If you haven't heard me on Wait, you probably should. It was a good episode, and that's available.
It was Friday, right?
Yeah, it was Friday, Saturday. It's the current podcast.
Got it. I have saved.
Mm-hmm. I actually listened to my podcasts out of order just to make sure that I got.
That's
I
commitment.
got a chance to listen, yeah.
Yes.
Now, I have to ask, I presume you've listened. Now, how would you have done, because, I mean, clearly it seemed like your nightmare would have been to have gotten the Bluff the Listener game. How did you find that Bluff the Listener game this week?
I would have gotten it wrong. And so the big joke that I have is that I'm a multiple time game show loser. Jeopardy was my 5th game show that I've lost on.
Catch it all.
Yeah, thank you, Ranjani. I love you.
I've only been on one and I've lost one, so.
But
we got the same fraction.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, sorry. But it was very nice to finally win one. And if I would have had that Bluff the Listener game, I was listening to that, I would have been in severe panic mode.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean, obviously worked out for you. So clearly, I would say you're 1 for 6 now.
Yes, absolutely. I was very fortunate to not lose this time.
A comment from Sheldon Lewis. He thinks a lot of tournament contestants do feel that way when it comes to matchups. He's sad he never got to go against the champion, but every player is extremely humble in real life, and it's so nice to see. Another question from Amy Williamson. Excuse me, Lee, what is your second favorite meat?
My second favorite meat is hamburger, but
what's
my
your first
favorite meat is hot dog.
Okay.
For those of you
those
who
are the paper folds there.
That's the Mitt Romney thing that happened directly after. Really funny if you didn't get a chance to listen to that.
I gotta go back.
I will save the spoiler from the Limerick challenge then, because I mean I just about lost it.
Does it rhyme with Nantucket?
No. No, there was the contestant completely unknowingly had a hilarious story that completely fit in with the rest of the episode. But in any case, another question, Amy Williamson was wondering if you are if you're in Learned League.
Me or Lee?
Yes, you. If you Ranjani are in Learned League.
So I just made an account, but then didn't the site just go down?
Yeah, the site has been down for like a week and a half, but it went back up today.
Oh, okay, good. I was supposed to start up around this time, I think, is when it was supposed to start opening up for me. Um, so theoretically, yes, I am now. But as of a week ago, I was kind of in limbo,
Okay.
and so was the website.
Yeah, in case you haven't been paying attention, Learned League's website has been it's been down, but it did get back up today. So learnedleagueback.com is back, and it looks like the next season
Yeah,
will be starting around the end of May. So that's good.
it'll be
Um
my first time playing, so I'm excited.
I'm just trying to stall here because I've got one more question that's awaiting me from
Uh-oh.
somebody. So I'm not quite sure what they're going to be asking, but okay. What were so? I mean, you both spoke about what being disappointed about the tournament ending too soon, as it were, for you. What was your favorite part of the experience, though?
Just every little bit of it, being able to say that I've done this. This has been like a lifelong dream of mine, but it's always kind of one of those very far off dreams, I think. I never thought I'd actually be able to take the test, get called in, get on the show to begin with. Um, so, I mean, not winning is like the cherry falling off the top of your ice cream, but I don't really like cherries anyway. So it's kind of like I still got the ice cream, I still got the experience of being on the show. I got to meet some really cool people, some really smart people from around the country. Um, I got to tell my kids that I've done this. So they're all super proud of me, even though all my AP Gov kids are like, how'd you miss it? I'm like, I'm sorry. I teach everything else. I'm sorry. So, yeah, it's been really cool. I mean, I'm in a very small club of people who've ever been on the show.
Mm-hmm.
So I gotta see that perspective. I can't just be like, oh shoot, I missed a question. Like everyone's missed a question.
And you, Lee?
I got to meet some really important people, and just I got to put names to faces. I got to meet people that are not only my friends, but people who I love and care about throughout this process. And the joke of the day that I generally have is that Jeopardy is Jeopardy is much more than just a check that you're going to wind up cashing.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much that you gain from being around these people and making just connections. There are people that I have made connections with that I hope are in my life for the rest of my life. I mean, like that strong of connections.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel blessed and I feel lucky. Everyone talks about having that Jeopardy story, but I have that Jeopardy story over and over again with the people that I now know and love. It's really important and really nice to have that moment and to make not only friends with people that, but people that I have this mega common connection with, this mega moment in which you can't ever look back. It's that big time moment that it's really hard to even put into words. The connections I made with these people, and a few of them in particular, they've changed my life.
Nice.
And that's the biggest win from Jeopardy I could have ever had.
Now, I hate to kind of bring things down off this moment, but the question I was waiting for was from Rachel Schumann, and she says, it's funny. Everyone, well, I think it's funny, but she's like, everyone always asks about the best thing to come from the experience, and literally the question she has here: can you ask the panel what is the worst thing to come from this experience?
Oh, Rachel, you're dead.
I'll let you start this one off.
Okay, so for those of you who don't know me, I'm generally really good in public, but I have a couple of these little fears in my life. Number one is that I had to overcome a mega speech impediment when I was younger. So when I was going into the show, and the reason why I hadn't ever tried out for the show previously. And this is something I had told Tara. And Tara Whittle, by the way, shout out to Tara, if you're listening, was that I wasn't going to go on the show. I was never going to apply on the show, because if I had known an answer and buzzed in and I started stuttering and wasn't able to get the answer out, it would be the most embarrassing thing that would ever happen to me. And it was absolutely that moment where I was afraid that was going to happen. And that didn't happen. But the absolute worst part of the show for me was that moment when Double Jeopardy was ending. And the question was, and the final question was it was a $400 question. It was sounds criminal, but isn't. And it was, the question was battery. What is battery? And I tried buzzing in, and then I looked down at my buzzer, because obviously I thought my batteries and my buzzer were dead. And it was that moment where I'm like, that's the worst thing that happened to me at Jeopardy. Like that moment, and I knew I made that face. And if you go back to the tape, you're going to see a face of me looking at my buzzer like, what the hell just happened? That was my worst moment on Jeopardy.
I don't know. I think the hardest thing for me was that it was not that I missed out on semifinals. It's that I missed out so close to semifinals. I think was kind of hard, especially in hindsight when I figured out the wildcard scores after, and I was like, oh shoot. But I think overall, like, I think I did better than I thought I would, and in some places I did a lot better than I thought I would. So I have that to take away. Like, obviously it didn't end where I wanted it to, but I can't identify any worst moment on there. It was just, it kind of ended like this, which is what I told the kids. I was like, how's the end? Yeah, a little bit. But I think there's enough things for me to be proud of, I think.
Nice. Mm-hmm.
Overall. I don't think I can find a worse. I think there's a worse part, but I don't think I can go superlative on that.
Okay. Well, what would you say is the worst part of it then?
That, exactly. It's just being so close.
Okay.
And being the last match to go up, like, at that point, you're kind of, like, everyone's done, everyone's leaving, you rushed out the door a little bit, and then you're like, oh, shoot, what just happened? I guess another bad part was, like, I'd expected my mom to be there that day, that I was kind of waiting for her to show up in the studio, and I was kind of looking around, like, where's she? Is she gonna be here? She didn't end up making it that day. She made it the second day, but I wasn't playing the second day, obviously. So I was kind of like, she was like, man, I wish I could have seen you on the stage. I was like, man, I wish you could have too. Would have been good. Mm-hmm. But she watched it since then. She like texted me and she was really happy. So yeah, we're good.
Another comment from Sheldon Lewis saying that he's had plenty of stellar teachers, but he knows that if he'd met any of the teachers in the tournament in his career, he knows he would have been even more inspired to carry on. So, as he says, you all put on such a good show.
Thank you.
I think so. I think across the board it was competitive. We played fair. We played clean. I heard from a lot of the teachers who were holding watch parties, like, a lot of our kids started booing when other people showed up on the screen, started buzzing in. And I was like, guys, no, they're all super nice. Like, stop doing that. We can't be rude. But yeah, it's cool for our students. It's cool for us to be able to say that we did this. It makes us look cooler at schools. I would hope so. I'm not just like the nerd. I have a little nerd cred now.
Nice.
My kids, my lovely 8th grade students had a ton of things to say. First off,
of course.
they all wanted a piece of Larry. Every single one of them wanted a piece of Larry.
Yeah.
They're like, okay, give us the address of this Larry guy. We're gonna break his legs. I'm like, no. Larry's a good dude. You can't break Larry's legs.
He bought us donuts.
And then one of my students, and I'll say his name, but he's been a problematic student this year. He's like, Mr. D, you were doing it wrong. I'm like, yeah, obviously. He's like, no. You were holding the buzzer wrong. Here, let me show you. And then I'm going to just grab a pen here. Yeah. He's like, you were holding the buzzer like this, but you should have been holding the buzzer like this because you actually move quicker because you're not working against gravity. Because after you buzz down, you have to bring your thumb back up.
Right.
And I looked at him and I said, you're fired. I'm failing you because why didn't you tell me this beforehand? Because all of you, if you're on Jeopardy live panel right now, if you're watching this, if you're listening, grab a pen. We're all gonna wait for you. Grab a pen, grab
Oh,
something,
geez. Okay.
and actually try it. You're going to be shocked on how much faster it is to go on the side rather than going up and down.
I don't know. Like it's. I'm sure it makes a difference on an actual buzzer. I'm just not feeling it right here.
Well, that's because you're just randomly fast. But for me, it was infinitely faster. And I just sat there and I told this kid, well, I'm failing you for the marking
It's
period.
just a good pen.
Because if you would have told me that in advance, maybe this whole Larry thing wouldn't have happened. I told him that he cost me a lot of money.
Ooh.
Right, I owe you.
Now, Sheldon has also said apparently his mother was kicked off a flight for some reason and wasn't able to come see Sheldon in his tournament. So, again, it makes for a bittersweet memory for him that parent couldn't be there.
Yeah. At least my mom got to come the second day, and she got to meet everybody. I think it would have been cool for her to be there the first day. I don't know if I think it would have made me more nervous. I think. I definitely missed an Indian question, so I lost some Indian street cred. I didn't buzz in fast enough. On Indira Gandhi, I was like, ah, shoot. So, but I got a Ganges question the next day, so I was like, credit restored, brown card renewed. So
So,
I was looking out for stuff like that.
nice. On that note, I would like to, I think we are at the over an hour mark at this point, just about. So I think it's a good time to say thank you both, Ranjani and Lee, for joining me on hashtag Jeopardy Live panel tonight.
Mhm. Absolutely.
It was a lot of fun. Thank you for inviting us.
So,
It's been cathartic too, so it's good.
I'm sorry.
It's been cathartic.
Oh, okay, yeah. It's interesting. You're not the first person to have said that.
Mhm.
Well, on that note, again, thanks to Lee and Ranjani, I'm Andy Saunders. We'll be back with another episode of hashtag Jeopardy Live Panel once the Teachers Tournament finishes up this week. And I honestly have no, I don't even think I can make a prediction at this point from what I've seen. The games have just been so close and so competitive. It feels like anyone still in the tournament can win the tournament right now. So I really have no idea who's going to win.
It's a real roller coaster.
I am really looking forward to it. So for Lee and Ranjani, I'm Andy Saunders. Thank you all so much for listening and watching this episode. Have a great night.
Bye.
Bye.